Hey, what's up, Wealth Smart families? This is your host, Dan McCabe, and I appreciate you, as always, for joining us on this podcast. Today's episode, I am talking to Jon Drew. So, Jon is a successful home-based business operator who has built a home-based business that satisfies all of his financial needs and has helped provide him the time freedom that he desired for his life with his family. See, but that was not always the case. Once upon a time, Jon had a normal corporate job. He was a CPA. He was working a ton of hours, sleepless nights, anxiety. It didn't matter how much he worked. He was not necessarily making the amount of money that he wanted to, but he kept working more, thinking it would get him there. And then ultimately, he realized that his entire life was consumed by his job. And he just didn't want that anymore. He wanted to be able to spend more time with his family, kind of why we created this podcast in the first place. So in today's interview, he talks about that transition. How did he finally make the leap from corporate employee to full-time home-based business owner? What does that transition look like? And I think a lot of his answers are going to surprise you. And then even beyond that, towards the end, we get into not just how did he make that leap, but also how did he become successful in the home-based business and how does he build it and grow it and scale it now. So super cool interview. I had a lot of fun. I know that you guys are going to enjoy it. Let's just jump right in. Let's get started. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dan McCabe, and welcome to the Wealth Smart Families podcast. Today, I am with Jon Drew. Jon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been following you for a while now on your Facebook group, and what you guys are doing over in the 5-Star Power Group is pretty incredible. The way you've designed this life, that it appears that you've designed the life, and you're designing the life that you want to live. I understand previously, and I said in the intro, you were a CPA, and you made the switch over to home-based business entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the personal stuff later?
Of course. Yeah. It's a story I never get sick of telling. It's kind of an odd one. It's not always the route that I recommend for anybody listening, but I'll tell you my story anyways. I was in the field as a certified public accountant, as you mentioned, at a financial planning firm. So I used to work with a bunch of clients, kind of came in as an intern, did that whole, the American dream, right? Got my college degree, worked my way up, got these promotions. My goal was always to be able to retire early, right? So I had to work hard. I had to save a lot of money. I think it kind of goes to what we're talking about here, right? Getting people educated in the ways that they can do things like that. And so that was my goal. My parents had taught me that, and I wanted to go fast. Okay, patience has not always been the greatest virtue for me, Dan, I'll tell you. So
No.
I went fast, but the problem was the responsibilities went kind of like that. By the end of my second year, I was managing a couple hundred clients. And to be honest, that probably was a little soon for them to kind of put that on me, but I would take whatever project was given, trying to rank up. And so my title would change, but my pay always was kind of hard locked. And, at first I thought that was part of paying your dues, but a couple of years go by and every 6 months I'm supposed to be getting this big raise. I'm chasing kind of this carrot on the stick, I feel like, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So 3 years into my job, I finally sat down and I'm like, guys, like, we're trying to get a house. It's the house you guys see now here in the background. So there's the happy ending of the story, but we're trying to get a house. We're trying to, talk about starting a family, my wife and I, and we got to figure this thing out. I mean, you guys have been promising me at this point, they were saying when this pay came, it was going to double. Like they were going to double my salary. That's how far behind we were.
Wow.
And they're like, okay, we got this handled. We got it fixed. We got the approval. It's going into effect in a couple months. We had found this house that we really wanted, perfect spot, right? And I'm like, I can go put this down payment down, right? It's going to be built, 6 months from now. And they said, yes. Well, as you can tell where the story's probably going, 6 weeks later, right? Someone else, some other office pulls a plug on that deal. Turns out to be, forget about 100% pay raise and all this stuff, is like 5% and more work.
Oh,
so
nice.
I was, just, a little icing on top. So I was up to, they dropped that on me, I think a little maybe strategically about a week before tax season started, which was like, we'd go from our usual 55, 60-hour weeks to like 90, where you're saying goodbye to the spouse and you're packing up for the office. And I had a pretty tough time over those few months. I felt really confused, maybe a little used. And I was kind of down on myself. Like, how did I let this happen? Like maybe I was a little too ambitious and I didn't pay attention to like the signs. Right.
Yeah.
And I realized that maybe I didn't love this job as much as I thought I did. I loved helping people. One of the reasons I'm on here today, I loved the idea of helping people manage their money so that it didn't become such a burden, like when they had to say no to a kid going to college or, any of those different things that I would see or find out they have to retire years later. Like I used to be the guy that have to give them the bad news all the time, that you got to save more every month. You got to make this sacrifice to hit that goal. But I knew it was important. And so I liked that part of the job, but it wasn't worth my health. Over that tax season, I started suffering. I couldn't sleep anymore. I started, like the few hours I was home, I couldn't sleep. That brought on like anxiety. I kept going to work anyways. I mean, I had to keep filling the paycheck. But by the end of those 90 days, I don't think I slept more than about an hour a night for a few months there. It was bad. Yeah. People said I looked bad. I felt bad. Not something I'd want to go through again. And so I kind of knew by the end of that I wanted to do something different. I didn't like that feeling of relinquishing that control to someone else to kind of make my like decisions for me, so to speak. And I was afraid to go start over at another firm because I was kind of scarred from this one. I'm like, what if the same thing happens again, right? At least here I'm like kind of like the golden child. Maybe I'm not getting paid, but management loves me. If I go somewhere else, who knows? So I was in this kind of stuck spot for not where I thought I would be in like my late 20s. I had given up a few years hanging out with friends, all that, right? So that's when you talk about home-based business, and the reason it's such a long-winded answer is a lot of people don't understand kind of the process, right? I probably wouldn't have been open to what I ended up doing at first. I was set on career, right? This is the path to walk on. But at that moment, I was in a lot of pain. I said, I'll look at things that are outside of my comfort zone that I don't fully understand, because I really want to be able to work for myself so that maybe I can employ some people and treat them the right way, or I can help people achieve their goals. And so an opportunity fell into my lap. It was actually 2 days after that, the tax season ended, that I met with a client, late meeting after season end. Client told me about what he was doing, this industry he was working in. And it turns out it was network marketing, which is something that I wasn't really against, but I wasn't really for either. I mean, it's kind of like neutral to me. I'm not a big sales guy. I'm a numbers guy, and I had those misconceptions that it had to be heavy selling, heavy push and all that. But at the time, house was on the way, right? The money wasn't there. So I needed something to supplement my income. So I learned the system. I started doing this. And what intrigued me was we were working with something we couldn't sell in our own state. So this guy was building this business, and I had seen the books. I'd seen him grow it, and he couldn't sell the product locally. It wasn't there. So I was like, that's weird. I thought you had to work with just people you know. That was how I understood the industry. And so he showed me, right, network marketing, belly to belly, face to face only. I mean,
coffee meetings, hoodwink people in with a laptop.
You got it. That's what I was used to, like hearing about anyways. And so that intrigued me. And I said, well, let me take a look at it. So when I saw how he was doing it, I said, wow, cool. That's something that I'd like to do. And I had a little, marginal success, Dan, nothing that would blow anyone's mind listening, but it did help me supplement my income a little bit. But it gave me the belief. Exactly. Yeah. Which was more valuable than any of the early dollar amounts were.
You're working your current job during this time too?
I was. And so for about 3 months after, I kind of like, that was like the D-Day of changing my mind, was like the end of that tax season. And for about 3 months after, I worked, and I was working on this as well. And, this is the part I call this, you guys, the best stupid decision I've ever made, because I don't recommend it, but this is what I did. A few months in, I wasn't making anywhere near enough with this sort of side hustle to supplement my primary job. But as I started to get confidence in it and I could see the vision, I just wanted more hours to work on it. And I went in on a Monday. It was not planned. I just saw someone had dumped like a stack of files like this high on my desk, stuff that was not my own work. People were kind of like, I was the go-to for this one thing, whether I got paid on it or not. And it just, something clicked in my head, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I want to go see what I can do on my own. And if that doesn't work, I'll go back and get another job. That was kind of my thought process.
So if you walked in that day with no plan, did you have some kind of epic departure, or did you just write a very nice resignation letter? Did you like bring in a trombone band and like open up the door and drop the mic and John out?
Afterwards it kind of went that, like, the management made it that way because they were shocked. And, this is the hard part. This was part of why I left, to be honest. I really liked my management, and they actually were gunning for me. It's just the corporate structure made it so that their hands would get tied. I was too young to get that, that pay raise, that whatever. So I respected them a lot. So I gave them my 2 weeks. But what changed afterwards in the company was pretty cool. Like, actually made me feel good, because they changed the way a few things worked. And 3 of my buddies called me and said they immediately got 20% pay raises after I left. Yeah. So it was like, you feel good about that at least, and change happens. So it
Right.
had that long lasting effect that definitely made me feel good. But at the time, I liked my boss, so we sat down and we had about a 5-minute stare off where he didn't blink at me when I told him I was putting in my 2 weeks, and it was real awkward. And then
Did they have you work out the 2 weeks in a job like that?
they did actually, which is surprising because usually they want to get you out, right? And
Right.
afraid that they never believe you when you say you're not going to another firm. I'm like, no, I'm going something totally different. And usually they're like, sure, you want to call your clients and try to bring them. But no, I guess they trusted me. They left me on the gig. And I think I stayed up until it was like one day before the end of my 2 weeks. And
Sure.
they just said, you can get
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah. Funny side story. Back when I was 24 years old, I was a real estate agent right out of college. I had got my degree in real estate and finance, and I was a real estate agent, and I decided to switch companies. I went and gave my broker a 2-week notice. Anybody who's in real estate, there is no reason to give a 2-week notice. Like, I gave him a 2-week notice, and he's like, why would you give us 2 weeks? Like, just pack up your stuff and leave so we can put somebody else there. I'm
right.
Like,
give up your spot.
it seemed like the right thing to do, but
yeah, I thought that was the nice thing to do. They're like, nope, see ya.
Right.
Here's
You
the
said
box.
some pretty interesting things in your answer there, like kind of from the beginning, and I was taking some notes and paying attention just because I wanted to circle back to them. But you talked about that 1 hour of sleep and that anxiety. And I know a lot of our listeners, I know right now, like we're talking to one of our listeners. I don't know which one, but somebody right now is hearing this and they are going through that exact same experience. And it's a hard thing to go through because even as entrepreneurs, we've been through it from time to time, or I've been through it from time to time, working my own stuff where you are having those nights. But I've seen even more of my kind of, my corporate friends and the people that are just stressed out working too many hours for, what would not be enough money, or they're completely handcuffed into that job because if they stop what they're doing, they can't pay their bills the next month.
Exactly.
So it's really, really hard for somebody to make that transition. So, kind of the point I wanted to make on the reason I asked the question previously is like, how long was your transition period? And you said 3 months of you kept your other job, your other income, and you were working your side hustle, so to speak, for 3 months, probably giving it a couple hours a night, few hours a night.
Yeah, like lunch break at work. Like I like lunch break at work, probably cheat a little bit too on the clock, a little in the corner. But yeah, a couple hours a day for sure.
Even 3 months at that point. I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround. But the things I like people to understand if they're thinking about making that transition, because I've seen numerous people make that transition now over the years. Whether it takes 6 months, a year and a half,
right,
to get from that to kind of where you're at now with the life that you've been designing and working on towards yourself, it's still worth it.
Absolutely. And, that's what I recommend probably to the average person is like, if you carve out a certain amount of time and you make it work, it doesn't matter. Like for most people, it's probably like 1 to 2 years that still takes you really wanting it. Like if you stop, it's going to be longer than that. But what I found is, so like I rushed it, right? And that's why I always tell people like, pump the brakes a little bit with that stuff. But like, if I had done it, it probably would have been about a year. If I would have done it perfectly, I would have done what I was doing for another year. I would have saved up, even more money. Because my first year was tough because I didn't have the double income long enough from the side hustle plus, my main job. And maybe a great lesson on here, if you don't mind me just sharing a 30-second tidbit I used to share with clients, money management stuff. You think of, a side hustle and you hear the ability to make an extra, like, let's say $200 a week or $800 a month. And some people go, that's not that much money. Like I make way more than that at my job. Well, you have your expenses that are here, right? And you've got your salary income that's probably maybe like that, hopefully. So you have just a little bit left.
Slightly higher for the people that are just listening.
Yep, exactly. Oh yeah. The people are just listening. So you got your expenses eating up 90% of your salary, and then you got that last 10% that maybe you save. Hopefully you can save a little more. What's amazing with like a side hustle is all that money, if it's not baked into your expenses already, it's like can double, triple, quadruple the amount of extra cash that you have. Right. So don't view it as like a dollar amount only. Like view it as how much money do I currently have left after my paycheck. For some of you, it might be none. For some of you, it could even be, and it's okay because I've been there, there's more month than there is money. Like it's scrambling, right? So it's a way that you could turn when there's a couple $100 left at the end of the month, that $200 a week that didn't seem like a big deal, that could be $1,000 left at the end of the month. So if you're trying to hit goals, that's the best way to start. Start modest and then get good at it long term. And what I found happened is a lot of the anxiety, the fear I was going through was because of feeling trapped. Like you mentioned with some of your friends that you said have had things. It's it's that loss of control over your own life. You don't like what you're doing. It's not paying you enough to live the lifestyle. You can't provide for your family the way you want to, but you're tied to it because of the paycheck. You're afraid to even go apply somewhere else because what if they catch you and you lose your job? I've heard of that even happening. And so I get the things that people are going through with that. And that's where I think some of the like health issues I went through came from, because it was just this feeling of, this is not where I wanted to be. Like, this is not where I saw myself being. I feel like I can't win either way. I can't get paid enough, but I can't leave to go do something else because I have these bills to pay. And so what I found happened is, as soon as I started even working on my side hustle, even before it was, making me much money, it's like I had a goal to work for and a light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel is, wow, there are other ways out there to do things. Maybe if I get good enough at this, I won't have to be, tied down anymore, or be in a position where I can't kind of determine my own fate, so to speak. So that changed my perspective even before the money side really happened. I started feeling a lot better and I got reinvigorated, and I started showing up to work actually with more energy there. Because it was like, okay, I just got to keep doing a good job here, keep getting paid, and then I'm going to figure out how to get to where I want to go, on my outside of work hours.
When you're in those funks and you've got those anxious nights, and it's happened to all of us before, we've all been there. And especially, what you just said, for me, it's once I have a plan developed, once I kind of know what's going to get me out of that, like, your energy level starts getting higher. You start feeling more positive. And I really liked your analogy of looking at it like, yeah, maybe it's only a couple $100 extra a month. But right now, if you only have $50 extra a month, it's 500% of that.
Exactly. Perfect.
It is a step in the right direction. And as long as you keep taking those baby steps, and then even if it takes you 2 years, it's still worth it, because what's the alternative? You don't sleep for the next 2 years and you're still scratching your head wondering what the heck you're going to do or how you're going to get out of that situation. So at some point, if you want things to be different, you gotta do something different. So there's a lot of great points, great analogies there. So what is it like now? How long have you been out of that CPA job, and what's your life look like day to day now?
Well, it's been just over 3 years. So it was September of 2016 that I actually made the jump to walk out of that and do this. And so ever since then, I enjoy working at home. So you guys, for those that are watching the video, like, this is one of the bedrooms in my house that I've sort of claimed as an office. I've got my dog Cooper's laying on the floor next to me. He knows to behave during interviews and stuff like this now. So like, I get to, be at home, hang out at home. I like that personally. My day to day is, it's not the most structured thing, to be honest. Like, I keep a calendar and I do a lot of different stuff. So early on, it was like heavy focus, right? You focus on the activities that are going to make you money. And that's for all of you. And I think a lot of people make this mistake. If they start up a business, they want to immediately like replicate what the person who's just make $1 million, the person that's out there doing big things, they want to replicate all that. And it's like, it's setting yourself up for failure. Focus on just your basic activities. So I started with that. How do I make money in my business? How do I get more customers? How do I help more people? How do I build more influence for myself so that I can affect, more people? And I went from that to, long-term now, it's just fun, because now with a team that's around 4,000 or so people on it, I get to just go in there and find the people who are really making moves and, moving and shaking, and get involved with them and help them in their life. Like, for some people, this is the first time that they've made income, not through a primary job. In fact, for a lot of them, it is. So teaching them how to save it, giving them some tips for like taxes, things that I can pull on from my prior career. And I love doing that. And that's all on top of obviously teaching them the core business that I'm in. But that's not even the point for today's conversation. It's just like, I teach them that, of course, but also it's just the life side of it. And that's why I'm so grateful for being in that career for a few years. I think that helped me a lot. The firm they gave me great training, right? It's just, I monetized it outside of their umbrella, but what I learned there now serves me and other people quite a bit. And so that's my day to day. It really varies. It's very just scheduled out on my calendar. A lot of stuff like we're doing right now, meeting and networking, but in fun ways. I'm not chasing people around. I'm not doing those things that probably a lot of people think maybe when they hear about this kind of industry. In fact, like I've got a podcast, I do stuff like that. I have people come to me and talk, and it's
Sure.
it's just fun. You just build it one brick at a time. It does not all work right at once. So it's I know it's a little bit of a vague answer, but you start with your
No,
core activities and you keep going.
right. No, that's all right. I mean, there's one thing that I've seen happen a handful of times, and I wholeheartedly believe that it's really hard for people that are in the corporate world to believe, but if they take the concepts, the structure, the organization that they get from that corporate job and that experience and that training, and they apply it to entrepreneurship, they're better than most entrepreneurs. They can come in because entrepreneurs, I grew up as an entrepreneur to the core. Like, I've never actually had a real job. I bought my first house at 19 and just kind of kept going from there, investing or doing things in real estate or network marketing. But it was hard for me to develop that structure and organization and systems within my business, which people that have come from the corporate world, that's just what you learn. That's like 101. You start there. So, it's hard for them to get that belief to come over, or just that general misconception around network marketing. So you were in that corporate world. It sounds like you were skeptical about the industry of network marketing. You don't need to sell me on it because I'm a big proponent of it, but I'm sure we've got some listeners. What was it that shifted your belief beyond having a little bit of success to where you were open-minded enough to look at network marketing? And then what are your beliefs around the industry now?
I think it was just the ability to know that anybody, regardless of where they start, has the potential to make it all the way. I mean, that was big for me. And it wasn't just like a pipe dream, where a lot of people, I think that there's one person that just gets gifted that and like no one else will ever be there. And it's not true. So like I started at the bottom, right, in mine, just like everybody does. But the difference is at my job, I won't do the hand references again for those that are on audio, but at my job, right, it's pretty similar. So in my network marketing company, there's kind of four leadership levels. In my job, it was pretty similar. That would have been my career trajectory. And by what happened in my job was I made it to, my first level in the first year, the second in the second year. And I was pretty much at the third level by like the third year, but my pay was still at level 0. Like it hadn't followed along. What I loved in network marketing, because of what I had just experienced, was if I do X, I will get Y, like every single time. Right. And then I just had to teach other people how to do the same thing. So I went out and found other people who felt like underappreciated. And I just said, let's do this together. I got the same feeling as you. This is how I got it first started. And, let's go get ourselves paid what we're worth. And then over time, like your role shifts, and it's funny because it's just like it would at a career. It's just streamlined, and it's just not as common, right? There isn't going to be as much maybe structure, definitely not, right? As much structure. You're not showing up to an office every day. You have to self-motivate. So I'm not trying to act like it's just a quick plug and play, like you can replicate it. But if you find something that you believe in, like a product or whatever, out there that you can get behind, you can employ, just like you said, employ things from the corporate world into this. And that's how my teams run. Like I have some database, ideas that I took right from the way I did things in my last company. And I was kind of one of the people that helped them innovate some stuff. And I brought it right over here when I did my business and taught other people how to use it. So it's really just a matter of where do you fit in, what skills do you have, and then go surround yourself with other people who have the opposite skill sets, or maybe can help you fill in some of the gaps. And I really like the working as a team. So that's what eventually sold me. Part one was you can get to wherever you want to go. Nobody can stop you from going to where you want to go. And then 2 was, if you work together as a team, the amount of satisfaction, along with obviously income, which is a goal for it too, you can get is astounding. And you can kind of make sure everybody gets taken care of. And so I got hooked and addicted to that approach of just growing a bigger and bigger team. And now it's like growing new, teams inside of the team became so much fun. Now you're exactly. And growing leaders is like my favorite part of the job, getting to know people, meeting their families. Just like, we were talking for a few minutes before we started, just like, that's the part of the job I really like, just making connections with people and just seeing where the value is.
You call it team. I mean, people who listen to this podcast, follow me on social media, have heard me talk about this alignment that network marketing creates. And that's what I love about it, is that alignment where we all work together towards the same kind of common goals. and I can help support and train people. But really at the end of the day, your job as a leader becomes, how do I help that person that's making that transition from their corporate job to network marketing? How do I help that person fulfill their dreams? And I can put
Yep.
all my focus on helping them fulfill what they want. And I just know that my organization will take care of itself. That,
Yep.
because we're in this perfect alignment, this harmonious alignment together, that, my dreams will be fulfilled by going out and helping other people fulfill their dreams.
Yep.
And so it's a fun place to be. It's a fun place to play, is the idea of just going out there and helping and serving other people, as opposed to, the corporate structure, which is you can work as hard or not as hard as you want, and your pay doesn't always necessarily dictate that. So we're going to wrap up here relatively soon. I had a handful of questions here we didn't get to, but we'll do that again sometime or find another forum. But what are, let's go with like 3 things or a couple things that you can think of for somebody who's, on the fence thinking about that transition. Like what are some of the things they should think about or do if they're looking at making a jump similar to the one that you made?
I mean, I think number 1 would be get your goals like in line. So know exactly what you need to do before you jump. So it's better to at least have a plan, and then the time will come to jump. What I don't suggest is just jumping with no parachute, because you don't really know. You get down and then you start spinning in circles, and it's so overwhelming that you can't get things done. So having a good plan, the day that you decide if you want to cut the cord, it's like, what your next activity is going to be that day. The day I left my job, I drove right to the guy's house, my client, for training. Like, it was that day. He lived right over by my office. He's like, don't you want to take a week to relax? I was like, no, because that's going to get me stressed out. Like, I'm coming over. Let's do this right now. So have it laid out. And then number 2 would be know that it's not going to go according to plan, which is like the opposite. But be ready for things to not work the way you wanted to. The biggest thing in our industry is you find people that you think are going to work with you, that are going to really help you go get that alignment just right. And they tell you all the right things, and then they don't end up wanting to do it with you.
Exactly.
And you feel a little alone. You feel maybe a little crazy at first. And then, so number 2 is understanding that that's normal. But there will be a lot of challenges, and oftentimes frustration precedes like your biggest breakthroughs. So there's been several times I've wanted to throw in the towel, and I've always found that if I push through that, I usually have a major breakthrough in like the next 30 days. And so just knowing ahead of time that it's not going to be maybe as stable of a ride as a regular job. It's going to be more up and down. Be prepared for that. And then number 3 is, I think it's a perfect round out for this show. Know your numbers. Know what you need to do in order to make your goals in life, because the fastest way to go out of business is for you to not be able to take care of your personal life, right? So you may want this so bad, you may hate your job so much, but it's not the time to leave yet until you have a really good way to pay that mortgage, that rent every month. Because the second that those things go south, you'll be tucking tail so fast to go back into a job, right? It's not ideal. So even though my story wasn't patience, I'm going to push patience onto everybody, is make sure you can do it consistently well before you make the full jump. So don't base it on, wow, I did great for 3 weeks. I'm so good at this, because we can all have hot streaks. We can all have cold streaks. Make sure you consistently know that you are able to show up, do the work, get paid at least to some degree off of it, and you feel confident you can scale it up. And at that point in time, when you feel that, then it's time to jump off the cliff. Like, when you feel that all 3 of those things are in line, that's when don't overthink it, just go. But prior to that, I get those items together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of people can have some short-term success in network marketing, and what you're saying is spot on, that make sure you can do it consistently. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. I heard this interesting tidbit the other day, though, from an owner of a network marketing company, that they went away from lifestyle bonuses and car bonuses, which the network marketing industry is like famous for.
Right, known for.
Car bonus, go buy your dream car, because people would get super motivated. They'd go qualify for the dream car, but then they couldn't maintain that consistency. They would qualify,
right, yep,
buy it, and then 2 months later, they're responsible for the payments. And now all of a sudden, they're making less money because they're not hitting those ranks each month. They still just have the income from their job, but their expenses went up because their lifestyle went up.
Yep.
So, I loved your last piece there, staying consistent. So one of the other things you said it early on, and it's kind of evident the way we do these podcasts and everything else that we are big believers in technology. We're big believers in the industry of network marketing, home-based businesses, at the same time, the internet. One of the biggest hurdles a lot of people have with this industry is the old adage of, I need to go talk to my friends and family. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the uncomfortable stuff. So
Yep.
the fact that you've been building and growing your team consistently over, the previous 3 years through using the internet is super cool. And you and I talked before this, and if people want to get in touch with you, kind of regarding what it is that you have going on, what it is you do, how you support, coach, train, and help people make that transition the way you did. We developed a link within Wealth Smart Families for you so they can get in contact with you and your team. And it's wealthsmartfamilies.com/Jon Drew. And just so I make sure I spelled that right, it's Jon.
Yep, that's correct. JONDREW. Two first names, easy to remember.
Easy. So, all right. So wealthsmartfamilies.com/Jon Drew. We'll also drop that down in the show notes. But I want to make sure that I got that out there, because I believe the approach that you are taking to this industry is the right approach. You've approached it like a business. You treat it like a business. You're helping train and coach people to treat this like a business, and not necessarily, it's not that we join a network marketing company after we go to a fancy presentation somewhere and we're going to be on yachts in 3 months. It's more realistic, but it's also very possible. And a lot of people can do this. And like I said, I'm a big believer that people in the corporate world can crush this industry if they decide to make the leap. So I would highly encourage anybody out there listening or watching this video to get in touch with Jon through the link I just gave you. And we'll put it, like I said, in the show notes as well. Anything you want to close out with? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get wrapped up.
The really quick one, and this is the overwhelming thing I tell everybody is if you want to do some of this, get a coach. And so that doesn't mean, that's not a plug for me or anybody else. Right. That's just find somebody who's teaching what it is you want to do and go get it. I teach my team that. So if you want to learn social media, how to market your business on social media, then go find someone who teaches that, follow exactly what they teach and implement it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Start with what's already working, then put your own spin on it, you guys. There's people out there. Look, nowadays, you can get information for next to nothing. Low cost, listening to shows like this, going out there and finding a coach. So have a coach, then you can be a coach afterwards.
Absolutely, 100%. So, well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for hopping on the show today. And like I said, I encourage anybody to reach out to you. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone, for checking us out.